Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Just walk beside me and be my friend. Albert Camus. Mother Teresa said, let us always meet each other with a smile, for the smile is the beginning of love. Start with a smile. Start with a smile. So today we begin a month-long series on friendship, and I'd like us to consider that friendship is a universal spiritual principle. Because the sacred texts, it's in many of the sacred texts, they speak about friendship. Medical science has done the research on the benefits of friendship, and great people have reflected on friendship. So friendship, I'm going to consider it might just be a universal principle. I'm not going to answer definitively that it's a universal principle today. That'll be by the end of the month. We'll get to how is it a universal principle. A Jewish proverb states, who finds a faithful friend finds a treasure. Who finds a faithful friend finds a treasure. And another Jewish proverb states, who is mighty? Who is mighty? One who makes an enemy a friend. From the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, two are better off than one because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him, it's a big Old Testament word. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and does not have another to lift him up. And from Proverbs, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. Again, the Bible's gender specific. One person sharpens another. One woman sharpens another. So the value of friendship is clear even from 2,000 years ago, more than 2,000 years ago. A friend is a treasure, someone who will lift you up when you fall, someone who sharpens you and makes you your best self. And you can turn, and if you can turn an enemy into a friend, then you are mighty. You're a mighty being if you can take an enemy and convert an enemy to a friend. And even implicit in that is the possibility that enemies can be turned into friends. It's implied in this proverb that it's possible. And you can be friendly without necessarily being a friend. What it takes to be a good friend or a friend is bringing yourself back into the relationship despite the hardships, despite the ups and downs. You bring yourself back into that relationship. You allow yourself to mix it up, and you keep coming back despite good times, bad times. I'll be on your side forevermore. That's the difference between being friendly and what a friend is for. So, friendly is an approach. Friendly is an approach. A friend, on the other hand, is a commitment. I'll be on your side forevermore is a commitment. It's I'm promising you something from now and into the future. Being a friend is something that's seasoned over time like an iron frying pan. You don't buy an iron frying pan new and expect it to have that really dark, thick coating on it. That's seasoning that happens in what? In time, but in flames. In flames. The whole thing is, if all things were always rosy, it's easy to be a friend. That's why the in good times and in bad times is a crucial point in this particular discussion, because being a friend means I'm going to weather with you even through a bad time. So, speaking of bad times, I'd like to share with you how David and I became friends. One, he's not here, so I can talk about it. David's my bass player. So we were co-workers at a company about 12 years ago now. Co-workers at a company. We worked in different departments. I didn't even know him. And my boss one day said to me, you should go meet David and you should be friends. It's my boss giving me an instruction. It was the strangest instruction I'd ever gotten. I'd never been told I should be friends with somebody before. You should be friends with him. She goes, you're both guys, you're both about the same age, this departments are both kind of filled with women, and I think you need a male friend, I think he needs a male friend. She had the whole reasoning behind it, but she told me, go be his friend. It's like, okay. So I went and I met David, and we started hanging out. Sometimes we would have lunch, other times we would take a break and go for a walk. And I had, by this point, I had done a lot of self-reflection, I'd done a lot of introspection. David had done, this is way before he became a therapist, way before he started his practice. And he had a way of teasing. When we would talk to each other, he would berate what I said in a teasing kind of, one could consider it a playful manner. I did not consider it playful. I would say something and he'd come back with a comeback, and I'm like, and I remember one day I got really, really, really angry with him, and I remember thinking the words. These are the literal words I thought. I am going to kill him. Now, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean literally that I would kill David, but that's the thought that crossed through my mind. I reached this breaking point of I had enough of his teasing, enough of his sarcasm, enough of his belittling me. I'm going to kill him, or just stop being his friend. And in that moment, what it felt like is not being his friend would be a relief. Not being his friend would be a good thing. Don't have to put up with that anymore. But I'd already been in new thought. I'd already been involved in new thought, thank God. And I used some of the tools that I gained to reflect on myself. What is it in me that is creating my life in this fashion? What is it in me that's having this teasing happening in my life that is having me have such a reaction to what is going on here? What is it? What am I bringing to this party? He's just making noise. I'm bringing something to this party. And when you ask the right questions, when you ask, what is it that I'm bringing to this party? What is it that's within me that's having this happen this way? I started to see I was afraid. I was afraid that teasing leads to bullying. I was afraid that bullying leads to physical violence. And by physical violence, I mean someone is going to get hurt. And by someone, I mean me. And again, once and again, I was being pinned to the ground, afraid that I was being pinned to the ground by an older brother bent on bending an arm, bent on inflicting as much pain as possible without leaving any marks. So there would be no evidence. So it was just his word against mine. Excuse me, was that on my outside voice? What a swirl I would go into that I was unaware of because he said something snide. David had nothing to do with my internal state. David had nothing to do with what was going on with me. It was like he might have been pushing my button, but I installed it. I had to see that I was resisting being teased because the baggage I had around about being teased. So what did the universe serve up? What did the universe provide for me? What lesson was there that the universe provided? The exact lesson that I needed to learn in order to grow. The exact lesson that I needed to hear for me to heal. The exact lesson for me to heal. The exact lesson that I needed in order to become more myself. More myself in this present moment and less my history. To be able to separate my history and just be present in the moment. Because up until that point, I wasn't present. When he would tease, I wasn't present. What was I? I was 8. Pinned down on the floor with an older brother, who I've forgiven, by the way, but that doesn't mean the reaction didn't happen. So that was the exact lesson I needed. in order to find what it's like to be present in the midst of being teased by somebody who I care about, who I'm calling now. I'm actually now saying the words, he's my friend at this point. He's my friend who's teasing me, who I had this thought that I thought I'd have to kill him because he's teasing me. And what there was for me to reflect on, what is my part in this matter? What is the lesson for me to learn? And the lesson for me to learn is reflect first inward and see, what am I bringing to that party? Being a friend is more than being friendly. Being a friend requires self-reflection, introspection, and work. Being friendly is a wonderful approach. Being a friend is a commitment. We've heard the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do to you. It's from Luke 6:31. Do unto others as you would have them do to you is Jesus, and then Buddha says, consider others as yourself. Almost the same line. Same teaching, same concept, same idea. Lao Tzu said, treat those who are good with goodness, and also treat those who are not good with goodness. Thus, goodness is attained. So what you bring to the party in a friendship is goodness. What you bring to the party, whether people are good to you or not good to you, it's not your job to teach them the lesson that they need to learn in order for them to correct their speech. It wasn't for me to teach David how to not tease. What there was for me to do was learn how to not react to his teasing. Muhammad said, kindness is a mark of faith. Kindness is a mark of faith, and whoever has no kindness has no faith. We can see a common theme here. Our actions should be good and kind towards each other. Our actions should be good and kind towards each other, especially people who are our friends. And as if the other were not other. As if the other were not other but self. You are not outside of me. You are a part of me. I see myself as a reflection in you. In his first letter to the Thessalonians, Paul says, therefore, encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. In Paul's letters, Paul was the first writer in the Christian movement, and the letter to Thessalonians is probably the first letter ever written. So it's the first thing he's doing with the churches, and his letters to the churches were his way of reaching out to the churches he helped start. So he started a church, and then he would stay in touch with them and help guide them through their theology and guide them through their governance of how to stay together as an organization. In many cases, his letters were pep talks. Here's a pep talk. Don't get down on yourself. Feel good about yourself. So in this case, therefore, encourage one another and build one another up just as you are doing. In this comment, he's acknowledging they're already doing something. Just as you are doing. So it's not like you're not doing it. I'm underlining, I'm underscoring, I'm reinforcing that you're doing something, and keep going. Keep up the good work. Keep up the good work is what he's saying. Encourage one another and build one another up. You can hear reflections of that from the statement we've been working with for about a few months now. Bless or be still. Bless or zip it. We could use that as the acronym. BOZ. BOZ. Bless or be still. Be still. If you can't bless something, be still. You can hear the reflection between encourage one another and build one another up, and bless or be still. They're kind of related. Now, a good practice in automobile maintenance is to have a tune-up every 30,000 miles. Replace the fuel filter, change the spark plugs, replace the distributor cap, check the timing, adjust the valves, replace the worn belts. There's a checklist of what you should do in a major tune-up. Kick the tires. So, I'm going to use two analogies. I'm going to use an automobile analogy and I'm going to use a music analogy. So as a musician who plays a stringed instrument, I tune my ukulele or my guitar before every performance. Tuning has to happen before every performance on those instruments. Tuning is essential for a good performance. If you go to an orchestral concert, the first thing that they do before the maestro comes out is they tune up the whole orchestra to an A. And you hear that lead violinist comes out, she plays an A, and then each group tunes to the A to make sure they're all in tune. What Paul was doing in his letter to the church in Thessalonica was he was tuning up the church. He's tuning up the church. Encourage and build one another up. So you're already doing it, but let's keep doing it. Make sure you understand that that's important. So in the letter to Peter, above all, keep loving one another earnestly. We don't use that adverb enough. We need to be using that adverb more in life. Earnestly. I'm doing something with earnest. Plus, it's Ernest Holmes' first name. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. Scott calls me up. Can you pick me up at midnight? Yes. And I can't say that I didn't have a little grumble, but I didn't let it out of my mouth. So the first thing is catch it before it comes out of your mouth. Without grumbling, as each has received a gift, as each of you has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's grace. With automobiles, there's a standard checklist of 10 to 12 things to do when performing this 30,000-mile tune-up. With a stringed instrument, there are 4, 5, 6, 12 strings. You need to check all 12 strings, all 4 strings, to make sure each one is in tune for the performance to sound good. A mechanic asks the question, what do I need to change to make the car run better? It's a very important question. What do I need to change to make the car run better? A musician asks, what needs to change to make my violin play better? What's not quite right, and what do I need to change? Mechanic, car. Musician, instrument. Friend. Friendships need tuning too. Do not assume that once you attain friendship state that it remains intact. How you check to see if a friendship is well tuned. Is it encouraging? Is it uplifting? Does it make you sharper? Does it make you sharper as a human being? And are you better for it? Those are the questions to know whether whether the friendship is in tune or not. How you tune the friendship is another set of questions. How you tune the friendship is first by asking the question, what is it in me that needs to change for me to be a better friend? Mechanic asks the question, what do I need to change? Musician asks, what do I need to change? If you want to be a friend who's tuning his friendships, your friendships, you have to ask the question, what is it in me that needs to change for me to be a better friend? What is it in me that needs to change so I can be more encouraging? What is it in me that needs to change so I can be more uplifting? What happens when you hear something strange in the car? Making a strange noise. It doesn't make that normal It's making this I'll take it to the mechanic. Because when you take it to the mechanic, it stops making the noise, right? You take it to the mechanic, you describe the noise, see if they can find it. Musicians have to listen in the middle of a performance. They have to listen to their instrument to see if their instrument is out of tune. When Cozy's singing with me and he's singing harmony, he's checking to see, is what I'm singing in harmony with what John's singing right now? And he makes these instant, microsecond adjustments to find the right note so that he's singing in harmony with me. So if you're a friend, you must first listen. You got to listen to yourself and listen to your friend and listen to what questions you're asking. What are you affirming? So from Luke, do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. This is the law of reciprocity. Bring what you see is missing. Gandhi. I would be the change that I would see in the world. So we have to be that part of the friendship. We have to be committed to being willing to ask sometimes difficult questions. Sometimes it's not easy to think, I might be the thing that needs changing here. But when you are confident in your practice, it's really okay to be the source of the thing that needs to be changing. It's okay for me to be, because it's temporary. It's not permanent. I'll just change this thing. And that'll make the difference. So some of the noises that Paul identifies, that identify as the car's making some funny noise, you should watch for that noise. If you hear that noise, then you should take your car to a mechanic. So Paul's identifying some of the noises that get in the way of our friendships. Quarreling. I'm not saying a good theological argument or philosophical argument. You can argue an idea. But quarreling is the kind of petty, I want my way, you want your way, and neither of us are getting our way, and now we're quarreling over, yeah, but you never give me my way. It becomes all about psychology, not about ideas. Quarreling. Jealousy. Were you talking to him? I saw you talking to him. What were we talking about? Anger. Both Buddhist and Christian philosophies teach that anger is not a productive emotion. It's not saying that it's immoral, but it doesn't have a place in a practice moving forward as a spiritual being. We want to work towards cooling the fires, not just saying, well, this is California. I've learned that I can express myself because I have the freedom of speech and I've done enough encounter groups so I know how to get it out. No, that's not what we're saying here. We're saying that anger is actually counterproductive. That we want to learn how to move past anger into calm, peaceful, loving kindness. Quarreling, jealousy, anger, hostility, slander. Saying something about someone that's not true to bring them down. Why would somebody slander another? Because they're not confident in their connection to God. I got nothing to slander somebody for if I'm confident. My connection to God is solid. Boom. I got nothing to say about somebody other than something that's great about them. Quarreling, jealousy, anger, hostility, slander, gossip. Talking about another behind their back. Talking about another behind their back and not blessing them in the process. Conceit. What you have is better than me. What you have is more than me. And disorder. Just being confused. You can see that if you study Buddhist principles and Christian principles, a lot of places they cross and intersect, and this is one of them. These ideas of not being calm, centered, connected, and exuding loving kindness. That's the goal. And these are the noises. When you hear these things, when you see these things within yourself, first of all, don't correct them in somebody else. That's not your job. Correcting them in somebody else is not your job. What there is to do is correct them within yourself. If what you see is anger in the world, if what you see is anger in your relationship, you start first to reflect and say, what is it in me that's having this be in part of my consciousness? What is it in me that I can reflect on, that I can heal right here, right now? So those are the ways that a friendship or friendships sound like they're out of tune, when those conditions are present. This week I invite you, and throughout the month I invite you to ask a tuning question. What is it in me that needs to change to be a better friend? What is it in me that needs to change to be a better friend? That is a mantra that will move you into a place where you have more control and more mastery over your ability to have people be friends in your life. And by tuning yourself towards friendship, you will find your greatest treasure.